So hi and welcome to another video, and I hope you're all staying safe with COVID-19 on the rampage at the moment across the world. So stay indoors and hopefully watch a bit of YouTube and stay safe. So today we'll be checking out the Noble 5 gaming mouse here and doing a full review on this mouse. If you're new to this channel, welcome. And what's different about this channel is I'm going to provide you with all the data and statistics here, providing you the truth behind the tools within the gaming industry for things like mice, monitors, keyboards. That's going to allow you to get the competitive edge here over your rival gamers. I mean, we all want the fastest gaming gear, right? Fastest monitors, mice, and what at the moment the industry doesn't show us in the reviews on YouTube or in the package or anything is which are the fastest, which are the slowest. We're going to measure every inch of it using a caliper. We use a 1000 FPS camera here to measure latency. Got a force gauge meter to measure the actuation force of the buttons or the glide of the mouse across pads. Got set scales to check. They're also telling us the truth about the weight. If you can't keep up on this channel, because there's going to be a lot of information thrown at you, like a lot of information in charts and statistics, and I'll put them into some nice graphs that I've revamped recently to help you try and understand this a little bit easier, then check out my Beardedbob.com website. All the information will be there. If it's not there now, it will be shortly. I mean, if you're not using this data I'm going to provide you, then for me, you're going to be at a disadvantage. This is going to give you that edge you need to get ahead and become a true esports player, in my opinion. So while this is $49.99, it's a limited run here. It's from a company called Noble 5. I've not heard of them before, but they contacted me and sent me out this mouse and said, Bob, check out this mouse. So here we are today, taking a look at it. As you know, with mice that are sent out to me, my reviews are always honest. I don't try and be biased or anything. You'll always get my honest opinion here, and the data will show that anyway, comparing against other mice that I've reviewed. So like I said, the truth behind the tool of the gaming industry. So the first test here, we're going to whip out the 1000 FPS camera here, and we're going to be testing the movement latency in Rainbow 6 first, which comes in with a latency of 28 milliseconds, putting it in mid in the table in the mouse that we tested. So in CSGO here, it comes in at 26 milliseconds. This again puts it towards the back of the pack. And in Kovvak here, it comes in at 29 milliseconds, puts it middle of the table here. So the glide test here, using the force gauge meter and G640 mousepad as the baseline. The NSW came in at 40 grams of force. The NFW came in at 53 grams of force, RSW 38 grams of force, RFW 64 grams of force. This gives it an average force required of 46 grams, which certainly puts it in the control area and certainly one of the more grippier mice to push across the pad. I think they could improve the skates here. They're not particularly great, I don't think. They could do with replacing. One of the problems you're going to have here is they're not going to be easy to find because the Noble 5 mouse isn't that well known. So let me know in the comments if you can find some. I had a look, I couldn't see any aftermarket skates for it. So back into latency tests here. The button latency in Rainbow 6 was 42 milliseconds, putting it in the middle of the table. So in CSGO, 60 milliseconds puts it dead last. See how it performs in other latency tests. This isn't the only one for buttons, so let's stick around. We've got Kovvak, it comes in at 49 milliseconds, again placing it towards the back. So it's not doing too well on the button latency. In Rainbow 6, it's 44 milliseconds, putting it towards the back. CSGO, 54 milliseconds, putting it towards the back. And in Kovvak, 50 milliseconds, so consistent here, it's at the back in Kovvak. So human benchmark, decent score, 163 milliseconds, very good score in fact, puts it joint second here, so impressive. We're moving on to the button latency in Blood PK, and the left button came with an average of 155 milliseconds, again decent, puts it joint third. And on the right mouse button, 166 milliseconds, putting it more towards the rear. Give that an average of both of those though, it gives it an average of 161 milliseconds in Blood PK here, which puts it in the faster mid-range mice. Just goes to show why we do a few different tests here. Still got more to come, but we do a few to give you a better idea because one test doesn't necessarily always tell the truth. So we pull out the reigning champion here for the bump test, which is the M1K. Nothing's beating it. If you know a mouse that can beat it, let me know in the comments, or send me one if you want, and let me know in the comments which one's going to win here against the Noble or the M1K. So the M1K on the first test here, which is the right mouse button, the M1K versus the left of the Noble 5, the M1K won. And in the second test, the M1K left mouse button versus the right mouse button of the Noble 5, the M1K won. So champion still remains with the M1K. The thing is unbeatable. Clicks per second, well, we all like to see how fast we can click the mouse when we're rapid firing something like Rainbow 6 or Call of Duty Sniper here. And I can get 6 clicks per second out of this mouse, which puts it in the mid of the table here, so nothing bad, nothing good. The feel of these buttons, well, one good thing to know here from Noble is they're using 20 million Omron from China. The rest are Hawano 20 million. They do feel nice. The click does feel a little bit stiff here. I'm going to try that out in a sec with the force gauge meter. I can't tell if that's the Hawano switch or the shell. My instinct here is it's going to be the shell because the switches are generally not that stiff. So let's see what it comes out with the force gauge meter right after the sound test. The scroll itself is using a S-switch encoder here. It's nice, it's a nice easy glide here, no issues, and the press is using a Hawano 20 million, which feels good itself as well. Side buttons themselves feel really good. There is very little pre-travel in these side buttons. They are really nice. The only complaint is they're a little bit thin, the buttons themselves, but overall a decent click as well from the side. On the front, left and right, minimal pre and post travel, which is good to see. So the force on the left button at the front is 50 grams of force, in the middle 85 grams of force, and on the rear 186 grams of force. On the right switch it's 59 grams of force at the front, in the middle 97 grams, and at the rear 206 grams. This gives them an average of 107 grams of force on the left, puts it in the firmer clicks as we thought, and on the right 121 grams of force, again putting it as a firm click here. So these certainly have some hard clicks to press in terms of other mice that we've tested, but I think it's the shell thickness over the switch actuation itself. So on the side buttons, the average was 114 grams of force, puts it again on the firm side, and on the side back, 100 grams of force, again putting it in the firm category. But for me, I don't mind this firm side button, stops any misclicks, so no issue there from me. Scroll wheel press, well, the average was 158 grams of force to press. This certainly puts it in the light range here at the top, and people might be concerned over misclicks here, but I had no misclicks on the scroll wheel when going forwards and backwards or anything like that, switching weapons or anything like that. I like this press, it's nice and light. So the weight of this mouse, they say, is 95 grams. It's not boasting to be any of the ultralight mice that are out there at the moment. This mouse on the scales comes in at 99 grams, a little bit of cable, and with all the cable 131 grams. It certainly is one of the heaviest mice, but again it's one of the largest, and it's not boasting to be ultra light here. So moving on to the draw test here, and this is using the 3360 sensor here, which is a well tested sensor. We've done a lot of mice on this now, and this one doesn't look to perform too great here in the sensor test, and that's because the DPI settings on this mouse are a little bit higher than I expected. Noble contacted me and said that they would be 500, 1000, 2000, 3000 upwards. But when I've tested it here, it starts at 1000 DPI. Can't get it down to 500. Don't know why. Don't know if that's a problem with mine or me, but I can only get up to 1000 here. So it's a little bit higher. So I've done 1000, 2000, which is a bit different. You can see here in the sensor test, well, it's a little bit all over the show. 3360 sensor. We know this performs well. So I'm going to put that down to the DPI settings here, which Noble say they're working on. And we should get something like 400, 800, 1600, which is the default generally in the industry at the minute. SLAM test, well, 3360, no problems, performs well. Sensor location, everyone wants to know sensor location at the minute, so in these videos now we're doing that going forward. And the sensor from the front of the mouse is 64mm, from the rear 64mm, from the left 29mm, and from the right 29mm. So dead center on this mouse, which is good to see. I know a lot of you don't like it slightly forward or back. This one's dead center. So the shape here, well, a lot of you keen-eyed people have already pointed this out before. This looks like a shade revolver here, just re-skinned. And looking at the specs, I don't have a shade revolver to compare this to, but looking at the specs, the difference I can only tell here is the 3360 sensor, but I haven't got a shade to compare it and to tear it down. But I will be doing a tear down of this Noble 5 here, and then I'll do another video on that. You can have a look inside and we can see if there's any differences. So this is an ambidextrous mouse. So the button combination here is 10 buttons, but you've only got 8 that are active at one time. You can either use the left side or the right side buttons like on a Zowie. You can't use them like you can do on a G Pro Wireless and have all 4 active at once. We've got a standard left and right mouse button. We've got a scroll wheel, a DPI up and down button on the top that's low profile, and underneath we have a polling rate button to change from 500 to 1000 poll rate. This has got a pretty cool paint job. It's black and white speckled front. It's got a white back and it's got purple/pink colouring around it for the lighting. I think it looks pretty nice here. I like the way it's styled. The coating itself is a matte finish, but it's a nice texture. It's not too much and it's got a little bit of grip to it. So I like it itself. It's got no rubber on the sides or anything like that. The scroll wheel is a bit like Zowie. It's got a rubber scroll wheel here with the casing kind of notching in it, but it's a little bit thinner. It's got 2 large skates on the rear, a bit like a Zowie as well. We'll see how they perform in the glide test. And it's also got a braided cable, which we'll see how flexible it is, but they never are. So in my 18 by 9 centimeter hand here, this mouse is probably still a little bit too big. This is certainly one of the larger mice we've tested, and we're going to measure it thoroughly in a bit. But you can see here it's probably a little bit too big for me, and that's how it felt. I'd like it a little bit smaller. In my girlfriend's hand here, which is 16 by 7.5, it's too big for her. Clearly this is for a large hand, and it's generally for palm and a claw grip. Certainly good here to see a larger mouse though for the people out there with big hands, because I know the market out there is quite limited. So finding something a little bit larger for people with a common shape here, that's pretty comfortable. Quality wise, this thing is solid as a rock. I was expecting to be a little bit cheap, but actually I'm impressed. It's really well built. I like the coating. There's no rattles in it whatsoever. There's no side flex, there's no creaks, cracks, anything. This thing is built like a tank. So onboard memory, while it doesn't have any, you're going to be stuck to what the default DPI settings are, and you can't reprogram these side buttons or rebind any of the other ones. It's set to standard, which is out the box. Side buttons are front and back. So moving into dimensions here, well, its full length is 130 millimeters, which is certainly a large mouse here, one of the biggest I think we've even tested. The rear width is 66 millimeters. The middle top is 56 millimeters. The middle including the side button profile is 63 millimeters. The middle bottom is 56 millimeters, and the front is 63 millimeters wide. The height on the rear is 36 millimeters. The height in the middle is 38 millimeters, and the front height is 20 millimeters. So this certainly puts it as the longest mouse, but in terms of other dimensions like the width and the height, it's certainly looking around the same as normal mice here, around the standard width and height that we see in the rest of the mice market at the moment in the mid-range for size. Button width here is 23 millimeters on the left and right. These for me are a little bit thin because when you've got a larger hand, you generally got quite thick fingers. 23 millimeters here, as you can see, is some of the narrowest buttons we've tested so far. So I think I'd like a bit more of a wider button press on this. The scroll wheel thickness is 6.1 millimeters thick and comes in at 26 millimeters in diameter, but that's an estimate. We'll have to test that properly when we tear the mouse down. For me, scroll wheel is a little bit thin. It's certainly one of the thinnest, and again, you have quite big hands to use this mouse, so scroll wheel shouldn't cause you a problem, but it could probably be a little bit thicker, to be fair. Cable thickness, well, it comes in at a thick 3.3 millimeters here, which is one of the thickest cables, in fact, the thickest cable we've tested here. And for me, it's got literally no flex in it. It is stiff as anything. Now, a lot of you are going to say use a bungee here, Bob, but it's too stiff. It's still going to be pushing back on you. It's not a great cable. I'd certainly power cord it straight out of the box. Software, Noble 5 says there's going to be something coming down the road potentially, but at the moment there isn't any software, and it's a pet hate of mine not having software. I think it's a bit annoying. Noble 5 say they're going to fix some of the DPI as well on the firmware updates, but for now it's a little bit hard to control the DPI. You haven't got many settings, and you can't control the side buttons for rebinds, but you could use something called X Mouse software, which will allow you to do that for the side button rebinds. I use it all the time, works with all the mice I've used. It's a good piece of software to get around these problems when vendors aren't giving us any software to configure the side buttons. I still don't get it. So in the Kovvak test here, well, the average sum was 95.3, the average final score was 76.1, and the average accuracy here is 79.8. I do these results across 3 Kovvak tests, and then we compare it in the chart here against the other ones, and this was coming in middle of the table, which was better than expected. I thought I wasn't going to do as well here, given the DPI issue I was having. I was trying to readjust to it, but not a bad score really, given the mouse itself and the size. Don't fit my hand too well, so I thought it performed quite well here. So my conclusion here, to wrap it up, this is one of the best built mice I've seen for a while, especially in this price range, and from a company that is not particularly well known. They've done a good job here. It's certainly for the larger hand size here, which is good to see because the market's quite narrow in that aspect. For palm and claw grip, it's got a very poor cable, certainly needs power cording. You need some better DPI defaults here because they suck at the minute. The performance of the skates here again was poor. I'm not sure what options we've got there. They could certainly do a little bit of tweaking in the next revision. It's got some narrow main buttons, which could be a problem for some people with larger hands, which this is aimed at. It's got one of the best sensors on the market, still in my opinion, the 3360, which is good to see. This is certainly a good sensor. It's got nice side buttons, which I like. I do like the feel also of the Hawaii 20 million clicks here. It's unusual to see these in mice at the moment. Performing well in most of the latency tests here, certainly doing well against some of the other more expensive mice, and it looks pretty cool in my opinion with this colour combo. So overall a decent mice for the price. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to check out a load more videos. I'm doing a Viper Mini very soon as a review. We're going to be doing a Viper teardown very soon. I might even stream it. Let me know if you fancy that, because lockdown is in place for COVID and I've probably got a bit extra time to do that. So yeah, I'll see you soon in the next video. Catch you later. Bye bye.